How are you?
You know what to do. I'm good, man. I'm good. Like I told you, I'm going through it too right now. So this is a great, it's gonna be great therapy, session going on here. So can't wait to talk about it.
Well, we're here. We're here for it.
We're here.
Alrighty. So today's episode for everyone that's watching, thank you so much again. We're here every Tuesday at 6:30. Today's a really special one. I just came back from a wedding, so we're kind of throwing ideas because the idea of kids is being thrown out a lot right now. I'm currently 25, heading on to 26. This is kind of the time frame when everyone really starts to get married, has kids, or they're really pushing for their career. Those are the three options, right? And so my dad asked me yesterday, like, what was close to my heart. And for me, it was really about what it meant to be a father and the idea of kids and like how your whole family dynamic shifts. So today's episode is going to be diving into my father's journey to fatherhood and what that meant to him, kind of the shifts that happen, and what we need to do to prepare for that. So without further ado, let's dive into it.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Thanks again, man. And you know, what's interesting about these episodes is we never really know what comes out of it. We never really know. Nothing is scripted. We have a topic that we talk about. But what I love about it is this is want everybody to know, like I'm just being vulnerable. Like I'm going through it today. I'm going through it today. A lot of people don't think that I go through it. I'm going through it. And being able to talk and just look at the camaraderie that Albert and I have in this space, and then we're sharing it. And I think that's why I'm so a big a proponent about when you really surrender and you attack that pain, it's gonna hurt for a while. And then eventually, because you get used to this feeling and you get used to going to that depth, it eventually goes away because now you've been able to address whatever that pain is. But what happens is a lot of folks cover that pain with their vices and things. I just went off a little tangent because I just want you to know, like, I'm a human being. My son's a human being. He shared some stuff with me prior to. Is like, but we feel it's super important that we talk about some of this stuff so you can know A, that you're not alone. B, there's someone that's feeling just like you. And C, there's a space to talk about it.
Mhm.
So yeah, man, I'll just leave it there. But yeah, just had to get that off my chest for a minute.
Well, I appreciate it. That's how you lead the way, you know? That's how you be vulnerable. That's how you show up for your kids, you know? And that's, again, one of the main themes that have been circulating throughout this entire process is to be a father, to be a parent, you have to lead, you have to be vulnerable, you have to be okay with sharing yourself that your kids um, can understand. Because it's not very common for that to happen because our ego, even before I'm gonna call you forward a little bit, you were even like going back and forth with your internal dialogue about your ego getting in the way because of a certain outcome that you didn't want someone else to feel, right? And so even with that, there's that inner dialogue of the that goes on as a person and as a man where you're gonna be like, I don't want to do this because someone else might think this, you know? And so that's crucial when you're leading a family, when you're having a family, is you have to be able to conversate and have to share like, hey, like I'm going through it right now. I need someone else to take the lead. I need someone else to help out. And then the kids will see that going on down the line. So that's part of the process right now is just taking a step back.
Yeah, man.
So I guess the first imagery that pops up after our little tangent is when you were talking about your little boy earlier. How would you have wanted someone to make you feel safe?
Mm. Ooh, I'm feeling it, man. I was always told to be quiet. I was never comforted. Was never hugged. I don't remember ever being welcome with a hug.
Mhm.
And when I say that, because I was dismissed a lot.
Mhm.
Saying, you really want something to cry about would come up. So on that tangent, one of the things that I naturally did as a new dad is I always hugged you guys. I've learned as an adult that in order to fulfill sometimes you have to give what you're seeking.
Mhm.
And there's two dads. There's the dad that was with Alyssa and who's 2.5, 3 years older than you, and there's the dad that you and Kaylee grew up with. And as I'm talking, I'm being a hypocrite, by the way, because that same emotional avoidance that I felt, your sister Alyssa felt for me. And I just recognized that about a year ago. I rarely hugged her. I rarely showed her affection. And I'm not proud of that, dude. But with you and Kaylee, it's like you guys became my world. So I gave you the love that I didn't get as a kid with affection, with love, with playing, with just always just making sure you got attention.
Thank you for sharing and being open. That's hard. That's hard to say as a parent. The thing that comes to mind is like just stepping up when you know you need to step up. You know, it's hard when you're young. You were 21 at the time when you had Alyssa, and then there was other stuff that was going on too with like location barriers and finding out as a surprise too that you were going to be a parent. And you shared with me this week too on how you learned about the news of being a father. So it doesn't really surprise me that that's how you reacted with her. And at the same time, I'm sure it's hard to reimagine that, especially like knowing who you are now. But that's a gift of the past is we get to see what's going on, right? And so I guess just diving one more layer deeper with learning about Alyssa, um, and then sharing how you interacted with her versus me and Kaylee. What what scared you about being a father? Like why didn't like when you clearly didn't know about all this stuff like that you uncovered within the last 5 years, like when you were about that age, what was what were you afraid of?
Yeah, I love your questions, dude. I know exactly what I was afraid of. See, the challenge we have as kids, and as we grow up into teenagers, we have a vision of a life we want to have. We have a vision of a life we don't want to have. And when I found out I was going to be a dad with someone that I wasn't really involved with anymore, I wasn't going to marry, wasn't the ideal person for me, I got very selfish. I was
I was
ashamed.
ashamed.
I was ashamed that I put myself in a situation. I was ashamed that I put this young woman in a situation to where now we're going to be parents. And I was mad that I put myself in this situation, that I couldn't marry the first love that I had and have kids with her and 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 I was following my parents' footsteps. Young kids, not responsible. I was working at a grocery store. I just felt a lot of shame and guilt. Like I was like, fuck it. And honestly, I was so selfish that I was like, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm still gonna go to college. Me.
Mm.
You're not gonna fuck this up. You're not. It was like this. Now I had this new target, which was her mom. You're not gonna do this to me. Why did you do this to me? This victim. So that right there, that barrier I created, caused me my ego caused me to automatically have a huge resistance to it. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's tough too when you're at that age, and you feel like you have to be selfish, and knowing more about your backstory too throughout this process is like it was it seems like it would feel like you're losing like your life too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, the selfish part is I was losing my life, yet I contributed to new life.
Right.
How fucking selfish is that?
Yeah.
That's where I was. I didn't understand. Again, all those things I'm telling you and teaching you, bro. It's like I didn't understand the evolution of life, the responsibility of a man. I didn't understand any of that. And now I'm thrusted into it, and I failed miserably.
Hmm.
Failed the test miserably.
And now you're admitting it too, right?
Yes. It's like, how the fuck could you be so, but again, arrogant? It was like, but again, that's where I was at. And no one could tell me different though.
Hmm.
No one could have changed my mind. I'll tell you something you'll never know. I was so ashamed of myself that where I worked at, there was rumors around because she lived in a neighborhood. I got someone pregnant.
Hmm.
I changed stores that I don't want to deal with.
Hmm.
That's how arrogant I was. That's how
Wow.
irresponsible I felt because I was ashamed. Yet there's this little girl in my life who's not even who's she's not even. I put the situation in place,
Hmm.
and she had to pay for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's something you have to live with forever, right? And then also that's why we mend the relationship now too, is like, so I guess just diving, like one more question I have before we kind of like transition is like, at what point did you realize that you realized you're a father, and then the way you interacted with her was, your own dynamic. Did you ever feel like that you loved her off the bat? Like, was there that like once you held them?
Question. I'm gonna share something you don't know. Okay. Maybe I share it with you. So the day Alyssa was born, I wrote a letter to her. I tell you that
No.
the letter is in my bag. I'll let you read it someday. I wrote it the day she was born. 3 pages. And what's interesting is when you read it, bro, you're gonna see your dad at 22 in his right. And you know who gave it to me? Alyssa.
Mm.
You know who gave it to her?
All right.
Grandfather.
Mm.
I gave it to him years ago because I didn't want it. So about 6 months, about a year ago, Alyssa goes, I have something for you.
Wow.
Well, this is my older 20, the one we're talking about. She's 29 now. And she gave me the letter. And I go, oh my God. I go, would you read it? She goes, yeah. It was actually pretty funny and it's pretty cute. And I could see you writing it. So, but the gist of of the letter was how proud I was of her. The gist of it was where I was at, what I was driving, what I was thinking, what music I was listening to. I'm listening to E40, bro, and Too Short back then. It's in the letter. And I just explained how happy I was. So it wasn't that I wasn't happy that she was in my life, is but they were words. I didn't back them up with any type of action. I want her in my life. I just didn't know how. I played the victim of, well, mom's gonna have her and I'll just come around when I need to. It's not a
Mhm.
dad,
No.
right? So, but that's the role that I played. I played a way out as opposed to playing a way in.
Mhm.
I didn't know how to handle. So I'm gonna stay on this topic because here's what's important of being a new dad. We don't know how to be parents. Like when that kid is in the womb, the mom gets to be with them every single day and comfort, and they sleep with it, and the baby knows. So when the baby comes out, they already know mom. They already know mom's smell, mom's taste. They're getting breastfed. They know mom's nurturing. So I got firsthand twice of when this baby came to me, she didn't want to be with me. So then it reaffirmed the baby doesn't want to be with me. But I didn't know this. I didn't know. I didn't know all this stuff I'm telling you.
Mhm.
I didn't know it was part of the process. That of course the baby's not going to know me, but I'm still father. So I play. So the more that happened, the more it reaffirmed this wedge that she's not really my daughter, and I don't have responsibility for her.
Mhm. Wait, yeah, that makes sense. That paints a picture a lot more of like, well, one, just like fatherhood in general, what you've shared with me, like how even with my mom and your dynamic after I was born, right? And then also you being in your adolescence age, of like not knowing what to do at all, let alone financial. I'm sure financially it was hard, like along with the emotional toll. It's got to be catastrophic, like not catastrophic, but it's got to be overbearing for just a young man who doesn't even know what's going on, right? And so, like for me, the reason why I wanted to talk about this today is because it's just so common. Like I'm seeing so many people have kids, and I'm like, damn, like I mean, good for them for wanting to do it, and I'm have the best hopes for them. And like one of the reasons why I want to bring this up is we are so young in the way that we interact with everyone, and I feel like for myself, I still have a lot of growth before I can become that father figure, and I wanted to learn on like what you felt like was your biggest hindrance in being able to open up and be able to share everything that you wanted to before you're ready.
Well, actually, so let's take a step back, right? So what you're saying is kind of true, which is at 24, 25, 26, it's young. 100 years ago, dude, 24 was old.
Right.
Kids were having sick once a woman became, had her menstrual cycle and she was 15, she was married by 18 from an, does that make sense? But we live in a different age because that back then it was about survival. The thing
Hmm.
about it now is that we are coddling a whole society that they need to go put work, they need to go put education, not knowing that the purpose of being on this planet is to reproduce, is to recreate. But we put all of our selfish needs ahead of ourselves and what we want to do, right? And what's best for us. I'm not disputing it, but that's what we're doing. We're creating a society of people. You got to go to school, you got to get education, you got to get a good job, and then you have family. It's never. This is the first time it's ever been like this in the last 40 years. So it wasn't that I was too young. Let me make sure I'm clear. It wasn't that I was too young. I want to make sure I'm perfectly clear on this. Is I didn't grow up in an environment understanding what a dad was. I grew up in an environment where at a very young age my parents were split up. So I grew up in two different households, not knowing how households work. And so my view of responsibility was I just perpetuated what happened to me And I just reenacted what happened to me,
Mhm.
not knowing that it has zero thing to do with education, zero with age or experience. None of us know how to become dads, but it's because I wasn't with someone that I can nurture, grow, love, and marry with. That's the problem. That's the challenge, right?
Yeah, it seems like there's a lack of connectivity and being able to like nurture yourself, like we said. There's like how do you comfort yourself in the long run? How do you comfort the baby once you have it in the long run? And it's like there's huge disconnect and wedge that I've noticed. And so I think that's the new struggle, right? Is figuring out like what is something that you want versus the overall goal of raising a child. That's what's daunting to me is like figuring out like how are you going to do this with another person and make sure that they are taken care of and you are taken care of as well. Um, I've just seen it through other people that once they choose someone to have babies with, it's like, how does it end catastrophically? Like, I've never understood that, you know? I mean, I know there's so much in between that happens over time that just grows and grows and grows, right? You know? And so I think that's another layer I wanted to dive down to is like, you tell me all the time, like, those red flags get a little bit bigger, they get brighter over time and after marriage, let alone with kids.
I think the big lesson I've learned, this is for everybody, and maybe some of you are dads or moms, is, and this is what I didn't know, is the evolution of dating and then engagement and then marriage. We go through phases. The man and woman goes through a phase, and I don't think they recognize it. There is a difference between dating, living with each other, and then getting engaged. They're different because now you're learning to live with someone a different way. Once you put a ring on it, something else changes. There's just so the dynamic that changes. So if there's something that bothers you about your mate, and you're going through this process, what I've figured out is the longer you're with that person, and you may have a problem with it, but if it doesn't get addressed or fixed, it just gets bigger because now you're committed to now you're committed to accepting that red flag,
Mhm. Yeah.
not change. And so what happens when you bring a baby in? This is where it shifts. When you bring a baby, you have to understand this. The woman changes dramatically because now her body's not in a state of survival for herself. Now she has to primary care for another human being.
Mhm.
The frontal lobe literally changes in a woman in her nurturing style. It literally changes. Her whole body hormonal changes. I didn't understand that. So as she's going through this change, now I'm going through a shift because now I'm no longer her primary person in her life. It's another thing I found out talking to a lot of men. They don't understand that this transition period when the baby's born is it's both of you, and then you're with her and you're nurturing her and the belly's big and you're touching the belly. You're all part of the process. And then you're not.
Mhm.
All of a sudden you're engaged with this, and then the baby's born. It's all about the baby and what the baby's needs and this. And next thing you know, you're nurturing the baby, but you're not nurturing each other. And then when you try to nurture each other, she doesn't want you on her, not for sex, but just because she's had a baby on her all day.
Right.
Feel like you're a man, you're like, but what about me? And what about me? And what about me? Right? My selfish needs. But not knowing that we're both going through a huge transition, which is this baby. But what most people fail to do, like we did, your mom and I did, I'll say that out loud, is we put so much attention on you guys that we never reconnected as a couple. We never learned how to do that. And that's where a lot of these relationships break up, is because we spend so much time on the baby and what's best for them that we neglect our relationship and why we got together, not knowing that this won't work if we're not connected. And that's what I felt when you guys were born, and especially when Kaylee came along, because now it was the house. No, so it was you. Actually, no, it was Kaylee because you was the baby, you, the house, Kitty, and then it was me.
Mhm.
Now I'm 5 layers deep, not knowing that I'm this I'm 5 miles away from my wife, not knowing what just happened. And then me, because of my wounding, I got resentful and I wanted to go work more. I didn't understand the evolution of being a father as a married man.
So how would you suggest then that if you were to do it again, like what would you do differently to make sure that you still are a part of the equation, right? But it feels like you're all the way at hell's door pretty much.
I think the big thing is, for whatever reason, I bought into this notion that we couldn't get a babysitter. We had no family up here. Your grandma Joe was here, but I didn't do a good enough fighting. For me, I didn't do a good enough fighting to date your mom. I didn't do enough to make her feel that it was okay to leave you guys for a couple hours, an hour with a neighbor or somebody that we can depend on. I didn't fight for that. I didn't fight for our marriage in that way.
Mm.
I went along with it so we didn't fight. I went along with it to pacify her needs. Not her fault. It's my fault that I didn't lead us in a way where we need to have, you and I, just a reconnection. We never reconnected, bro. Never, 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 dude. After Kaylee was born, we never reconnected.
Well, it seems like there's a pattern here too with like leading. Like if you don't address the problem, it's going to grow, whether it's in the relationship, in the baby stage, in this stage, and finding out that like it's up to me if I want to feel this way, right? And so this is interesting too. Like I was listening to a podcast too, and there was like this relationship coach. He was on, I think, Chris Williamson podcast, and he was sharing, and I love him too. He's got some good people on there. He was sharing how a lot of times it's about me, 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 right? In this relationship, how can you help me? How can you help me? And when it should be about like, how can I help you in this? And there's a way to do it to where you guys can both be mutually beneficial, I think. And it's so easy to get trapped because like you're in this like duo like relationship, and then this third or this third party comes with a baby, and then let's say you have a dog too, like you said with Kitty, and it feels like how would you even go about like putting those needs up front and saying like, hey, this is newborn that I know I need to take care of and it needs us, and at the same time make sure that your relationship is functioning well enough too. Like it seems like it's daunting. And then like you have that if it's your first one, you don't want to give it up at all because like it's your precious, it's your precious baby. It seems like that would be really hard in both the parents, doesn't matter who.
Well, here's what is unique with you with your mom. When you were born, it was interesting is that your mom and I did a lot of stuff. We stood up late with you. She would wait for me to get home. And so you were actually a great connector for us. The challenge is when Kaylee came along, now we had two of you. So then we had to divide and conquer because now you needed needs, Kaylee needed needs. So then we would have to flip flop. That is what segregated us
Mm,
because then both of your needs were different. And
right.
then
'Cause you just,
and then I would go outside with you guys so she could have time to do it. And then she would have the girls or you guys and I be at work. But then we never came back to the foundation of what about you and I? What do we need to do? That's what I'm referring to. Is like that's what Alyssa, Michael, and Brielle do. Like they do that. And I think that Michael being in the CHP Academy is helping that relationship because now they're learning how to live without each other. So when they come, they get to spend more time together. And I think that, but they still need date night. If your parents, my number one thing that I will tell you, your relationship will fail if you don't spend time dating the person that you're supposed to be with. Because
mhm.
what happens is, next thing you know, bro, you guys are 10 years old. Okay. That's 10 years that have gone by.
And
And
you don't know your
each day that
spouse.
goes by that you're not connecting with your mate is another wedge that's going to be had.
Mm,
So I'll tell you, honestly, by year 10, I knew we were going to get a divorce. I
mm,
knew we weren't going to make it. I just didn't want to have us what ended up happening, right? It ended up happening anyways when you're 15 or 14. The inevitable happened, but we never were able to connect as a couple, as lifelong partners, as this, and that's my fault. Um, I can't talk for your mom, but I know for me, I look back and I just know that I didn't do enough good enough job of fighting for my marriage because I didn't realize that you guys were going to eventually leave at some point in time and have your own needs. And we didn't I didn't do a good enough job to maintain that relationship with her.
yeah, I think that's what I'm looking forward to. Being a father is knowing that it's going to be difficult during that time frame. I mean, it's easier said now because I don't have a newborn, right, who's crying at 3 a.m. Which if you're a parent going through that right now, we feel you. I think there's so many different stages, right, in the development process. Like you get the newborn stage where like they literally need you 100%, and then you get a hold of the cute stage, and then you go through the toddler stage of like then they have their own personality. Um, you've prefaced this before, but like just reiterating it again, like what was your favorite part? Like what was your favorite stage?
3 to 7.
2 to 7? Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I would say yeah, 3 to 6, 3 to 7. Yeah, I'd say 3 to 6. Because here's what I love. When you guys are learning how to talk and communicate, you're a child of God. Like the way you think as little human beings is you don't see things as as a indoctrinated human being because you're not you're still learning. You're not even learning how to read yet. You're kindergarten or maybe first grade. You're still in this very precious, unimpressionable stage. But once you get into second grade, now you start developing your own beliefs.
Mm.
And this is why I tell you a lot of the stuff that you don't remember that I did as a father happened when you were 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. 7 years old is that age where where, where memories are reinforced, beliefs are reinforced. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If they're good memories, you're not going to remember them. If they're bad memories, you'll remember them because it's trauma. But the good memories is just part of your life. But I just remember in those stages, there's so many cool things. Like you guys learn how to your teeth were coming in. You learn how to get potty trained. I have stories and stories about that potty training and little Cheerios and the fucking the toilet and you're trying to pee in the Cheerios, hit them. Right, and then teaching you how to tie your shoes and then teaching you how to ride a bike and all these little conversations that you get to have with these little human beings because they're wanting your attention. And I tell this to everybody. I'm gonna say it again. All your kids want, even when they're teenagers, but it's a little different. All your kids want from ages 0 to 9 years old is your attention.
Mhm.
That's all they care about. All they care about is when you're coming home, when you're sitting down with me, when you're playing with me, when you're reading with me. When are you going to give me that time? And if you're not careful and you don't give them that time, you'll find out a teenager that now you're chasing them
Right.
because you didn't nurture that for years, which a lot of parents do. And I was fortunate enough to just give you guys the love that and your mom was as well. Your mom was a phenomenal mom. She still is. She gave you the love that she never got. She never got attention when she got home. She never got like attaboys or treats or treated like I didn't either. And so when we came together, I think that's why it's beautiful that her and I came together to create you guys. Was it because we had values that we wanted to instill as parents to our kids? We just didn't know how to build a relationship together. That was our downfall.
Mm. Yeah, I wonder how much that had to do with too. Like again, you had to unearth all of this stuff that you were still going through too, right? It's like that's things we're all still that little child that needs something, right? And so part of my journey is finding that out more. Is like what does the little boy need? Why is he doing what he needs to do right now? And um getting off track and then coming back on track, like it's all there. And I feel like they always say like I'm gonna be cliche right now, like we all are kids at heart, right? And then why do we pretend that we're not little kids still, in certain times? And then also like it's good that we're not little kids because we need to be adults and like, you know, take that courageous step. And so it's just interesting like how that dynamic is really shown like when you become a parent because you are gonna get triggered when your little kid is like acting like a little kid, right? And the tantrums happen, and then you get frustrated, you take it out on them. Um, I was pretty glad that you guys didn't yell at us. I would say too much. There was a couple of times when we felt it, but for me and Kaylee, we just knew how to get away with things when we wanted to, and then what we could get away with, and what we knew was like, okay, like we got to actually get our shit together, and that was funny growing up because me and her were pretty close with that stuff. Like, except for when she was older, she started to snitch a little bit more, and that was kind of annoying. But I'm getting on this side tangent now.
Question for you. So now that you're a man now and we were talking about being a father someday and what what are some qualities that you want to reinforce with your future son or daughter that you thought your mom and I were able to instill in you?
I think it was the family part. I think we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago when just the family dinner stuff. Like, yeah, it was frustrating sometimes because I was like, I just want to hang out with my friends, especially as I got older. Um, but that's something that was really powerful because then we could just like have fun, chit chat. I'm sure it was fun for you because then it was like not just about work and like the daily life of just doing, that was probably like a good 30 minutes of life that you could enjoy too. I'm sure it was partly selfish and also strengthening of the family. I thought that was good. Like the family game nights again, that was sometimes I didn't want to do it, but a lot of times it was really beneficial. So I think just instilling camaraderie and the togetherness was one. Number two, I mean, we always got complimented. Like you would tell us that like we were just good kids, just really disciplined and I don't know what the word is then for it, but you just knew that we knew how to like function as kids. So I think that, like both the dynamic of having some sort of level of fear or like leadership, I guess, of like not wanting to get in trouble, but not just doing it, but knowing that we had to do the right thing. So that little combination of just respect for the parents, and then that third one, if I had to name three, um, was you guys always told us that like we had to do the work. That was something that you always mentioned was you guys came from like poverty and so like you always wanted to make sure that we earned what we made. And so that was something that was powerful for me because I've learned the hard way, the other way around, and it's not as satisfying anyways. When you get things for free or like simple, like not as hard as someone else, and it's that feeling isn't even good. So it's interesting how now we're talking about like all these trophies for everyone, how that's going to shift for my generation now because it seems clearly that that's not the way to go. Um, so that was another lesson I definitely want to take in with my kids.
Yeah. What what are you looking forward to most? Let's say the first, yeah, just in general, like in the most, as far as like being a dad. What are you looking for the most?
It used to be coaching. That used to be something I really wanted to do. I think now, as I've gotten a little bit older, I think just having like a little person just to like teach and like grow and have them be a part of society and function because they're gonna like humble you a little bit, thinking like they might say something like whatever's on their mind and it'd be like, oh whoa, I haven't heard someone be real like that in a while, and then also have them be able to chase their dreams too. And then they're gonna cry, and then you get to work with them through that too. I think that's gonna be really special and in the ups and downs of their small world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find you're gonna have little quirks, little things you're gonna want to do, little traditions. That's why it's important that, again, one of the things your mom and I didn't talk about, just to tell you straightforward, like we never talked about what parenting was. We just happen to have the same values, by the way. So
Mhm.
what I and my invitation to you is, whoever that person's going to be, you guys have to talk about parenting. You got to talk about religion. You got to talk about finances. We didn't talk about any of that shit, any of it. Maybe once here and there, but it wasn't like, I believe, if you're going to be with someone and have that responsibility, is it's not just raising a kid. It's raising a kid to the values that you guys connect together. That's your church. That's your home. That's your space. And that's really important that if you and your wife aren't aligned in certain areas, having a kid will rear its other fucking head, dude. It will rear its head up. Because again, I'll fast forward. Let me give you one thing, piece of advice that you need to know is when your kids are old enough, they're gonna start taking sides. They're gonna ask mom one thing and ask dad another thing. And if you're not on the same page, or one of those parents to where you disregard the other parent. Now you're disrespecting not only the other parent, but now you're demising the authority. And one of the things that happened in our relationship, part of it had to do with her and I, our relationship not being as strong as it needed to be, is there would be overruling at times.
Mm,
Once that overruling happens, now the kids get to fucking do anarchy.
mm,
You guys didn't do that as much, but it created a rift because now we raise these little kids, but now they're turning teenagers, and now we're not on the same page because I say yes, you say no, and now you overrule me, and vice versa. So that you have to be careful with that, to where it's
mm,
not just. I think a lot of parents fall in the trap where say anybody can get along with a 3 year old because they don't talk back. They don't have their own way of thinking, or even a 6 year old. But what about a 10 year old who knows they're going to go to their friend's house and they know how to talk to dad? They've already developed strategies on how to talk, how to ask mom, and how to ask dad. And now because the relationship isn't where it needs to be, now the kids are now getting involved in the chaos
mm,
because the parents are overruling each other because now they're no longer on the same page.
mm. Yeah, that's interesting. Again, I want to have like the best teammate that we can coexist to, and commingling the family traditions that they grew up in too. Like that's something I want to continue learning is not just doing a tradition because it feels safe, but like how does that work with our relationship, you know? Like how does that like I want to include that if that's something that's important, and at the same time not just have it just because it's status quo. And that's interesting too, is like the next layer of the relationship in general is like what is going to happen when you do like disagree with something like that, whether it's as simple as like, hey, can you just go to the store right now? And it's like, no, mom said like go do chores, right? And then dad says yes. Then now he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna do what I want to do anyways, you know, and that's gonna cause a rift because one person said no, one person said yes, and it's just then it divides the parents too, and then that's a distraction down the line too. And um
And there's so many layers. There's so many layers, and but
yeah.
again, from experience, right? If you look at the parents that get divorced, most of them get divorced, and they'll tell you in some way or another is because of the kids. It's not you. You're not the problem. Yeah, you guys fuck shit up because you're kids, but it's because the parents haven't adapted to their relationship having kids.
Mm,
They haven't worked on their relationship being interwoven with kids. Hear this out. They've interwoven their lives into the kids.
mm,
Way different. Because when you interwove your lives into the kids, they become the centerpiece. Then you take away from the whole objective, which is to be with each other because you procreated as a byproduct of coming together, not the main product.
mhm.
And that's
Yeah,
what we
it's like
talked last week about why are we getting married just to get married and have a
yeah,
kid, or are we getting married because I want to be a wife and I want to be a husband and this is what my role is.
yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Like, is it just convenient rather than like, is it just the next step that it seems like it should be done? Um, Again, it all comes back to ownership, always come back to leadership. How are you gonna like show up, you know, when this happens? And are you gonna be surprised when this happens? And you're like, oh no, what am I gonna do now? So, um, for me, I took away from today is like when you're dealing with your kids, you know, I haven't had any kids yet, but when I want to be a dad, I want to be able to be there for them. I want to show up for them. I want to love them as I want to. And I think be there, be as someone, which I guess we didn't really talk about too, is like when they come for you for help, how are you going to show up for them in that way? You know, you're going to just give advice, you're going to listen, are you going to do what we do now and talk about it? Like that's another factor too that we need to discuss is like, are you going to be a type of parent that is their friends, or are you going to actually nurture them and develop them into functioning kids too? That'll be interesting too for me is how do I keep the disciplinary aspect and make sure that they understand how to have empathy for others too.
Well, I'm gonna share something with you. This is something I just learned. Again, I'm 52 years old, bro. I just learned this about a year ago, and I'm ashamed to say it, but it's the honest truth. Okay, because I didn't know how to be a dad in certain circumstances, or what a dad is. I did the best that I could, but this is why so many single moms are failing with sons. See, a mom's job is to nurture their kids to a certain age. They can nurture their girls as long as they want because they're women. They know what they are. But nurturing a boy is different. So a woman's role is to nurture their son till they're about 7, 8 years old, and then to take the reins off and let the man now lead to teach that little boy how to become a man. I just learned this recently because this is where a lot of, again, single moms are failing with their sons is because they're teaching them how to be women, meaning they're teaching how what women want, but they're not teaching them how to be a man. Does that make sense? Like they're not teaching how to be a man. So, for example, if a woman can't sustain a relationship with a man and she's single mom, she's teaching that man the
Yeah.
principles of, does that make sense?
Mhm.
Because she's going to keep a man, but so she's teaching these ideologies to that son she has. And he's gonna learn how to perpetuate that as what he's part of. So this is why it's important that dads, and I didn't do this to you, by the way. So I'm looking back, like there are parts that I did, but I didn't do a good enough job. I'm doing it now. That's just where we're for. I didn't do it at the time because A, I didn't know. B, I had an idea, but it no, but also C, I wasn't strong enough in our relationship to lead.
Mhm.
Your mom led most of the time because it was the path of least resistance, and I honestly didn't know where we're going sometimes.
Mhm.
So, but now you get to do is you as a young man get to take what we're talking about and you get to see all these things to fruition. Uh, what if dad is in the picture? How do you help your son then? It's a great question. It's a great question. I can't get into why the dad is in the picture because we get down the rabbit hole. Is it because it's your reason? Is it because he doesn't want to be in the life? Is that young man needs a man? He needs a man mentor. He needs somebody in his life that's going to be a big brother or someone is like maybe it's his uncle, maybe it's your dad. Somebody needs to help raise that young man.
Yeah, and I think especially older too. In the beginning, I don't know as much. I've never dealt with that, but it seems like, at least for me, I know I gravitated towards you within the last 4 years, 3 years, 4 years. And even with mom, I know I've distanced myself. Um, just because there's something different that is felt from a father figure. There's a desire to, I can't speak for all men, but it seems the case that for me, like I want to do tough shit sometimes, and it's really easy for moms to mom you and over nurture. Um, and so it's not even relatable sometimes, and I don't really want to hear it, which is really hard to say, because I love my mom, that I just don't want to hear the coddling sometimes, and I try to listen, and I know sometimes I don't, which I feel bad about because I know it's coming from a good place. And so there's just something different that is said and felt when it comes from a different. It's just like anything, right? Like if you were like to make an investment in something, like if it comes from just Joe Schmo, you're gonna be like, who are you? You know? There's just something different that is felt.
Yeah. So I'll address this. Again, this is where it's important for everybody to hear this. Men and women are different. Women love. They love everything. It's how they feel. They love. They love this. They love that. They love the cat. Love their house. Love their son. Love their kids. Okay. And they get their kick off of their emotions. They're emotional creatures. Men, young boys they want to feel capable. They want to achieve. They want to show you. that they've accomplished something. This is why we're always trying to solve shit. This is why when we have a problem, we're trying to solve it. Or we have this equation, we're trying to get to it. Or we have this relationship, we're trying to get through it. Or it's this predicament, we're trying to get through it. So the reason why you gravitate as a young man and probably see me now is you see yourself capable. What moms like to do is like, oh, it's okay. You don't have to do that. It's okay. I know you're feeling well. It's okay. The weather's, it's okay. The safety, they provide safety. Men provide capability.
Hmm.
And when you're capable, but you want to be safe, that's a hard thing to be in. So being capable means doing whatever you need to do to get that done. If you're capable of doing it, you should do it.
Hmm.
And this is where the respect comes in that men want to, we've talked about this. There's no one in your life, bro, that's hurt you, that's respected you. But there's 1,000 people in your life that love you that disrespected you.
Hmm.
So men want to feel capable and respectable. But that can't be taught until a young man is of age to where he's 8, 9, 10, where he starts to understand with his peers what's happening in life. Like we compete for bike races or, sprints or dodgeball, whatever we're playing. We're competing. We're always competing. We're not trying to negotiate feelings. We're like, no, I want to kick your ass. That's what little boys do. But moms, because of how they are, like, no, we don't want to hurt his feelings and want everybody to feel well. That's not how men operate.
Yeah.
And that's why I just bring it to attention that men and women are different. It's super important to have young men or men raise men.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for another great episode. We have a really special guest next week that I'm excited to bring on. She has a great ebook that I'm going to read this week. And for me today, it was just really good just to talk about fatherhood and just remind myself what I'm doing. It's often hard to, we discussed a little bit this afternoon, is it's hard to always see the end result when it's not in front of you. And for me, these types of conversations are great because I get to learn what you went through. I get to learn how I can take what you've learned and adapt it to my story, to not make those same mistakes. So that's always huge for me. And I just love that even in the beginning that you shared your vulnerability and we're open to go off tracks to bring it back on in a different route. And so that was really special for me to at least hear your what's really going on underneath the hood. So thank you for sharing.
No, man, thank you. And I love the fact that we can do this, man. Like, again, just imagine if my dad were able to do something like this when I was your age and just share not wisdom points, but just his experiences
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to labeling up these fantasies that I grew up with
Hmm.
or this way of life that I really didn't believe in. And I think that's why it's really important that this legacy project, it really is a legacy project. Like you get to now time fold years out of your life and potential heartbreak and mistakes. You're going to make them, but they may not be as magnified as mine were.
Hmm.
And you get to take these bits and pieces of what you like and what you don't like, and you get to put them all together. And you get to form what you want. And then when your son's of age, now we have an openness now that we've created that it's okay to talk to your father, your dad like this. But again, the responsibility is on you to continue nurturing that and uphold the standard that that young man's going to see evolve over the years because you're going to want to fall off.
Hmm.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
That's why right now, what you're putting in the work to prepare, you're prepare. The more you prepare, when that time comes, there's going to be less fallout. There's going to be more success because you're prepared. We're talking about it. We're laying the groundwork down. So I just appreciate that you come with your questions. I love your questions and that I can talk we can talk like this. It means a lot to me. I don't get to do this a lot. This is why you asked me one time, like, do I like coaching people? I don't like coaching, but I love, but this helps me more because it helps me more identify more with other men your age, the relatability, but also continues helping me. Like I feel 1,000 times better now, 1,000 times better,
Fuck yeah, let's go.
right? Because I get to talk about this, and I got assignment I'm going to be doing after this. So it's just a cool dynamic, bro. Thank you so much for holding space here.
Appreciate you, brother. Love you.
All
And
right.
we'll see you guys next week. 6:30. We'll be posting about it throughout the week.